so much. Give the judges to Bernie because it doesn't look like Michelle. Oh, yeah. I think Melissa has it. Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, I'd call the meeting to order for the purpose of having some swearing-ins, as well as later on, we'll be going through the budget. So with that, I would invite all of you to join me in a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we will be swearing in our new municipal judge, Mr. Trent Barkus. Please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Trent Barkus,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of North Dakota,
and the Constitution of the State of North Dakota,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of West Fargo Municipal Judge,
of the office of West Fargo Municipal Judge,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
We'll use this. This is the background. Yep, so you.
We'll get the iPad.
Go stand by Daddy.
Family of Trent, congratulations.
Thank you.
This is going to seem a bit unusual to you, but at this time now, myself, as the mayor of the city of West Fargo, Commissioner Brad Olson, and Commissioner-elect, soon to be sworn in, Robin Anderson, if you would all meet me up front. And the judge. The judge is going to administer our oath. solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of North Dakota,
and the Constitution of the State of North Dakota,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
that you are entering,
of Mayor, of Commissioner,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're doing photos again?
Yeah. Yeah. Jojo, I think that's together.
All of us?
Yeah. And then we'll get more family up here as well.
Did you get the memo? Paige, could bring the girls up, have a picture? Hi, how are you? How are you?
Excuse me a moment.
Go dancing with my wife, Robin. Okay. We'll do it afterwards or do it now? To communications, I'd like to bring all the commissioners down and make sure we have a photograph too for all of us, please. Family and members, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I have Jeff Bridge.
Oh, Jeff, I thought
Yeah,
that was
we
your
want
office.
that.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you. In front of the table. I'm Mayor Jeff Bridge.
Oh, let's come in front of the table, yeah.
I don't have to call it on a talk show to talk to this guy.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Take care.
You too. Where do you want to see?
Yep, and then, yeah, Mandy, you go right. Get in on. Can you all take a couple steps that way? Pete, oh.
Get out of there, Pete.
Pull over bottom of this.
All right, great, thank you.
Guys, rather be this way.
Right.
At this time, we're going to go through some of the additional appointments that the commission will have to act on. Item number 4 is the appointment of the vice president of the board of the city commission, in some circles known as the deputy mayor. And Mr. Brad Olson has been nominated for that.
Need a motion?
Yes, please.
Motion to approve?
Is there a second, please?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to Brad Olson as vice president of the board. Any discussion? All those in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Appointment of our municipal judge. Again, we are going to appoint Trent Barkus as well until the final, all the votes have been reviewed. A motion, please.
To approve or appoint Trent Barkus.
Second.
Second by Commissioner George. Been moved and seconded to appoint Trent Barkus. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 6 is the appointment of officers and their oath of office. We have not done the oath in the past, so I'm going to name the individuals that we have appointed. Number 1, our city administrator and auditor is Mrs. Tina Fisk. Our city attorney is the Onstead Twitchell Law Firm. Our city engineer is Dan Hansen. Our police chief, Dennis Otterness. Fire chief, Dan Fuller. Building inspector, Mark Hausch. And city assessor, Nick Lee. And we can address all of these individuals as one motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the list of A through G as officers. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 7 is the appointment of portfolios. The following is how they have been appointed. Their primary portfolio, sanitation, Commissioner Mandy George. Streets, water, and sewer, Commissioner Brad Olson. Police and fire, Commissioner Mark Simmons. Administration and finance, myself. Planning, zoning, and engineering, Robin Anderson. Their second portfolios will be as follows. Sanitation, Robin Anderson. Streets, water, and sewer, myself. Police and fire, Commissioner Mandy George. Administrative and finance, Commissioner Brad Olson. Planning, zoning, and engineering, Commissioner Mark Simmons. A motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the secondary assignments for the portfolios. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Appointments to committees. This is item number 8 on the agenda. The Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Corporation, Bernie Dardis. Fargo-Moorhead Metropolitan Council on Governments, Commissioner Brad Olson, Commissioner Mandy George. West Fargo Economic Development Advisory Committee, Commissioner Brad Olson, Commissioner Robin Anderson. Library Board, Commissioner Mandy George. Urban Forestry Committee, Commissioner Robin Anderson. Cass County Planning and Zoning, Commissioner Brad Olson. Fargo Cass Board of Public Health, Bernie Dardis. Airport Authority Liaison, Commissioner Mandy George. Fargo-Moorhead Flood Diversion Board of Authority, Bernie Dardis. Clay County Food Systems Advisory Commission, Commissioner Mandy George. Liquor Control Board, Commissioner Mark Simmons, Commissioner Robin Anderson. West Fargo Events, Commissioner Mark Simmons and Bernie Dardis. Diversion Project Assessment Committee, Mrs. Tina Fisk, City Administrator. And lastly, the Fargo-Moorhead Convention and Visitors Bureau, Melissa Richard, Communications Director for the City of West Fargo.
I'll make the motion to approve all those appointments.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the appointments to committees. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for your patience with that. At this time, we're going to review the draft of the preliminary 2023 City of West Fargo budget. I will call on Mrs. Tina Fisk.
Thank you, Commission President and Commissioners. I'm going to see if I can figure out what to do with this. Melissa? Tab at the top. Oh, never mind, I'm here. Okay. You've all received a copy of this preliminary budget, of this draft of the preliminary budget for 2023. I want to give you some highlights as to how this budget was put together. Here, it's the expenses by functional area right there, part of them. As you see before you is the draft budget for discussion. The process used for preparation of the budget included all department heads, commissioners, finance, and administration to compile the needs of each department based on the goals and prioritize projects for the 2023 year. Any changes discussed and agreed upon at this meeting will be incorporated into the next version with the plan of presenting the preliminary budget for approval in August. Staff looks forward to the opportunity to hear your thoughts and learn your goals for 2023. A few factors stand out in making the budget for the 2023 year work. The current value of 1 mil brings in approximately $230,434. This is up from 2022. The mill levy total for 2022 was $72.69. The draft budget being presented to you today leaves that mill levy at $72.69 for the 2023 year. In other words, a 0 mill increase. Increases in expenses in all tax levied funds currently totals $6.5 million, in addition to the $1.4 million funding gap that has been carried forward from prior budgets. The 0 mill increase is obtained through increases in the mill value, increased interest revenue, and transfers to the general fund and fire fund from other sources. This is how we compiled that list. The increase in valuation will cover approximately $2.5 million. $2.4 million will be transferred from the general fund reserve to cover the amount of increased cost of fire and police departments. The use of the general fund reserves rather than a mill increase is in anticipation of the proposed public safety sales tax to be voted on in the November election. If the $2.4 million increase, if not covered, if we would have had to put it in the budget, it would have been 11 mils of an increase. So just so that you're aware of that. The last item was second to last. Interest income is anticipated to come in at least $1.5 million higher for 2023. And $1 million will be transferred from special revenue funds to continue to reduce the funding gap from prior years without raising mills. Just as a side note, I do want to tell you that staff works very hard to keep the costs down, and Mr. Larson did a fantastic job, just finished our 2021 audit, got the audit report today, and our 2021 year, we were supposed to have a $1.5 million funding gap or deficit in the general fund, and it came in at $300,000. So staff works diligently to keep the costs down and to make sure that we can do everything we can to help the city. Inflation is currently 8-9% or whatever the flavor of the day is. The commission so far has given a cost of living adjustment of 4%, and that is included in the budgets. Health insurance, we've been told, will increase at a minimum of 9%. That is in the budget. State aid and highway tax revenues are anticipated to be back to pre-COVID numbers. We haven't been able to get the actual figure estimates from the League of Cities yet. They usually send them in March, but the legislature is running behind, and so they're just waiting for information. And then we'll update those numbers as well. Increases in fees are being investigated, but are not included at this time, as we have not been able to sit down with each department and investigate where we are and where we truly should be. Enterprise funds are also being reviewed for potential increases to cover the rising costs of providing services. Those increases, if determined to be needed, will be included with future budget revisions. Within this budget, you will notice the following positions are being requested for addition. One position in the assessing department, one survey manner and one engineering technician for the engineering department, one coordinator for the communications department, addition of one right-of-way and one equipment operator in the street department, addition of 5 patrol officers, one administrative assistant, and one body-worn record specialist in the police department, in addition to one SRO officer, that SRO will be funded 100% by the schools as it's located outside of city limits. This also includes an additional 10 firefighters with staggered hires, 2 battalion chiefs, a fire inspector, and 1 additional office coordinator for the fire department. The sanitation department requested 1 operator. With that in mind, I've given all of you a sheet that shows all of the different departments, and they will come up, and it's in your packet, their explanation for their what they feel is coming up for the 2023 year, what they feel their needs are, what their plans are, their goals. They will come up and just give you just a little bit of information, then they're available for you to ask questions. We won't make this a 4-hour event. Everyone's just going to talk for a couple of minutes, and then the questions are up to you. First of all, I want to apologize. I did not know that Robbie from the airport would be here, along with his board president, and he is here. So if we could start with Robbie, and then we'll go to the library. Thank you.
Commissioner,
Thank
so-
you. Tina, I just have a question. Are we going, I know in the past we've split these up. Are we going through all of these tonight?
We're just doing, since we've met with all of the commissioners and their various departments directly one-on-one, we're just doing an overview of each department so that the public can be aware of what
Okay,
staff is looking at and what the commission's looking at. And then any requests that you have for reductions, additions, or anything else, you can tell us now, or you can direct us before the next meeting. And at the very end, I will go through an explanation of how we plan to manage that process with you and make sure you're okay with it.
okay.
Okay, and
Thank you.
in anticipation of Robbie coming up, they did not have any changes in their requests for their mill levy or expenses, but I thought if you have a question for him.
It's the airport.
good evening, welcome.
Good evening, thank you. Dan Logering, I'm the current board president at the airport, and then Robbie Grandy is our airport manager. Just real briefly, like Tina stated, we are requesting 0 increases in our value, which actually results in a reduced mill levy for our budget. We've been maintaining our operations at the airport for many years at a pretty consistent rate, so we don't anticipate anything coming up next year for any increases.
I received a letter recently that you applied for some grants
Yes.
for the airport.
Yep.
Apparently, they notify my office when you have applied for grants. Do you want to share with us just a little bit about that?
Those are, so the state funding operates back a year, the city funding operates forward a year. So those were actually, it was a crack ceiling we got some grant money for, and then we purchased a snow removal blade.
Well, good.
So the state.
Well, I want to commend you
funded
for staying on top of those and applying for that type of, another source of income and to help maintain the airport. So, good job. Anybody else have any questions?
I want to commend you just for not coming and asking for more money, so. Because you're
Dan?
one of the few. Thank you.
Dan and Robbie, thank you for being here. Appreciate it very much.
Okay, so for the rest of the budget, the majority of it will go in order that's in your books. But I want to mention a couple things. There will be a couple different departments that they have individuals that need to leave early, so we will start with those, and then we'll go back to alphabetical order in your books. First of all, here's the mill levy schedule. This shows you the general fund, special assessment fund, or share of specials, fire, airport, their 2022 levy in mills and dollars, the 23 in mills and dollars, and then the total and the change from last year, which is the $2.3 million increase that I spoke to you about. And then we have the library. Their levy is considered separately because they create their own budget. Their board approves the budget. They send the budget to you, and then you have the ability to change the mills if you so choose, and then they take their budget back and handle it accordingly. This year, they're not asking for an increase in mills. Their expenses came in very well. So with that being said, we're going to go to the library, so I'm gonna try to find it on here as she comes up here.
Yeah, they're coming in.
I should have paged it. All right, then you can just roll up or down or do whatever you so choose.
Good evening, welcome.
Thank you, Commission, for having me here today and for allowing me to jump the line. Much appreciated. So as Tina stated, we are not asking for an increase. We aren't asking for any adjustments. There's not much changing in our lines overall. The lines that will be having adjustments include 640, which is furniture, for a phased project that was already initiated to improve the teen accessibility and area, as well as the magazine space downstairs, consolidating it and making it more accessible, as well as adjusting our large print to another area that is closer to handicap accessibility inside of the building. So all of these have been pre-planned and already are in the works. The next line that I have is 497, which is technology. Primarily, we're adding more circulating materials. I don't know if you're aware of a library of things is a thing that's occurring across the country and around the world, but we're jumping on that and offering not just physical and digital materials. We're expanding our collection to be including upgrading our launch pads, as well as a vlogging kit for iPhone users and potentially a GoPro. Included in that technology line is our upgrade of Office 365 as well. The final one that we have that has an increase would be 667, which is memberships. And that is because in this previous year, the board allowed for us to increase our circulation supervisor staff to have 2 full-time, which is much appreciated, but that person also needs training and access to outside resources. So that's where the membership increase is coming from. Surplus currently is at $85,234. This is without any adjustments to staffing. There is a staffing need. The average for our size of population, as well as curation of the content that we have currently, is 19 full-time staff and full-time employees. We're currently operating at 16, but in actuality, it's 12 full-time. The rest are filled in with part-time. And when we say part-time, it's very part-time. So we're going to look at adjusting that as we go forward. So, as I stated, we're holding steady at the 8.45 mils and request that that stays the same. Any questions for me?
Questions?
Thank you greatly.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, next up will be Public Works, but I know there was a lot of conversation. I know Bernie and I, Commission President Dardis and I, and others had several conversations. We talked a lot about travel and training, and we also talked about technology. And so I asked our Finance Director, Jim Larson, to run the numbers so that I could compare last year, or this year, to '23. And for travel and training combined across the city, it's actually down $11,000 from what we have budgeted for 2022. And for technology across this entire city, it's up about $305,000, but there's some large projects in here. We have a program called Rubicon, which I can't explain, but I know Mr. Larson can explain. That is $70,000. We are implementing finally Office 365. The implementation is $70,000, and the service to put it on all of our systems is $78,000. And then fleet and facilities software that we use to run a lot of different things that we push. I think that's the public-facing part, but Matt Anvig or Jim can tell you for sure. That's another $50,000. So that explains where the increases came in, mainly overall. And I just thought I would share that with you as we move forward and let others discuss their budgets. you have any questions on that for me? Not right now? Okay. Next is Public Works, and it will include the enterprise funds of water, sewer, and sanitation.
What was the one she asked?
Good evening, Commissioner President.
Good evening. Welcome.
Let's see if I can just. Get to the right page real quick. Almost there. All right. I guess my budget's a little bit more involved than a lot of people's. Although, I guess on this front page, I guess I did have a typo in here. On the bottom, it said I had 2 employee requests. I actually had 3. I had 1 for sanitation, 1 for road right-of-way, and 1 for streets. All of those increases are due to just the city growing. We're just taking on more. We're adding 400 to 500 homes per year, and we haven't added anybody from the sanitation in the last few years. So that's the reason for that. Just to kind of start off, I guess my goal since I took over is to just really create an accurate representation of what it costs to maintain the city. That's why I guess last year we broke it all down into 7 different departments so we can track each department a lot better than we can before when it was just more of a big pool of money. So that's why we're trying to go, I guess, separated. Made a little bit more work, but we can get a little bit more accurate on where we're spending that money. Just kind of start with a few challenges that we had with getting this budget. Everybody knows like the fuel costs right now. Our fuel costs are just kind of through the roof, and we had to really kind of go with on the fly on kind of increasing some of those fuel costs with that because we don't know what's going to happen next year. Supply issues as well. I mean, trying to order parts, different things like that. We're trying to be able to order ahead in case there's any shortages, different things like that. So we're trying to get creative on that. But as we were trying to budget a year ahead, it's really hard. It's a moving target on where that might be. Cost of equipment is the same thing. Parts and labor or parts and equipment are another thing where you just can't get it anymore. I mean, trucks, I think last year when they opened up the government pricing for trucks, they were sold out in 4 hours. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where everybody's trying to get it and there's just not enough of it. And we have to plan, instead of just a year down the road, we're actually about 2 or 3 because we just can't get that equipment in here. And then the state and some federal regulations came down this year on sewer and water, and then our CDL as we came earlier with. But to back up on Tina's part, some of the IT cost was because of the new state regulations. We got 2 different softwares, one to track backflow prevention, and then our industrial pretreatment. Some different software came in for those 2 to better track what we're doing so we can report to the state better. So that came in on some of our IT budgets as well on that. So to just kind of hit a lot of our goals is just to kind of continue to use Cartograph. That is our asset management system that was purchased probably about 5-6 years ago. We've got more people in place now that are really diving into that and using it its full potential to track projects where we can actually really get that detailed cost on what it costs, especially like downtown Cheyenne now where we're doing a little bit more down there. We are specifically coding everything and assigning it to an asset downtown so we'll be able to pull those reports out at the end of the year saying this is exactly what we spent in this area or this is how much it costs us for mowing different things. So we're really trying to use that to its full potential as well. And then just as it always can just kind of be creative and innovative on our funding sources. We've got some grants this last year. We will be applying for some in the future that we have our eye on. So those are kind of some of the things that we're hitting on as well. As with the sheet, we really tried a lot of the things in the budget. We're really just trying to move it around to make sure that the correct dollar amount is in the correct line item from year to year. So a lot of times, as far as the operating side, we didn't raise it too much. A lot of that was just inflation of materials and equipment or fuel, but for the most operation side, we were just kind of getting it in the right place is where we were trying to go with. So the equipment always everything's going up, so the equipment goes up. I guess I'll open it for questions on that.
Questions? Mr. Advick? Commissioner Simmons?
I just have one, Matt, and I'm not sure which department, but I know I saw it, but I don't find it now. Was at one time, were you looking at getting a dozer, D6 dozer?
Yes, it is in the,
Is it still in here somewhere?
it is in the lagoon. Yeah, it's under the sewer in the,
Okay, now-
you go back in the back page there, it should be,
Yeah, where's it?
one of the equipment ones in the back here, if I can find it for you. So with that, last year was really an anomaly, and we really found that out this spring, for being so dry. You know, last year, I mean, it didn't rain for 3 months on end. This year, we're basically going 3 days at a time to try and get, the equipment going. That addition of a second dozer would really help us out to be able to do what we want to do, plus, let me see.
One more. Yep, there it is.
Right there. We haven't.
There it is,
as
DC,
add-
okay, okay.
So that would be for the lagoon. The purpose with that is, you know, to one, help us get done what we need to do now, complete on the lagoons, and we would actually keep that one afterwards because it would be more beneficial to us than the large one. We would sell the large one. We have a D8 currently. That's a little bit too bulky to drive around. That D6 would be better. We can move it from snow piles in the winter to be able to push up. It just is easier for us to move. Plus, it would give us more freedom to use it later on as well.
Okay.
So it's not just a short-term purchase. This would be a long-term purchase.
So that's what I thought I read. So my question is that 335,000, is that the price of what a new D6 would cost you?
Right now, yes, because we
So
couldn't
it is-
find a used one.
And then we're gonna get rid of the D8, you said?
Not right now. Once we're done with the lagoon project, then we'll sell that.
Okay, so what is that worth? Do you even know?
Right now, probably 250,000.
More now than what it would be in a couple, when we're
Oh,
done.
yeah, when we were just getting prices on this, people thought we were selling it, and we were getting calls, and they wanted to buy it. So, I mean, that's just the way the market is right now.
Right, but in 2 years, it may not be like that, so whenever,
But
however long.
it's one of those pieces of equipment where it's gonna hold its value in, 3 to 5 years. We're still going to get probably over 100,000 for it.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know. I was curious where that, like, for an example, if you were gonna sell it right away, then obviously we wouldn't be spending 335,000. We'd probably be getting money back,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you're gonna hold on to it for a while.
We'll
That was
hold on to it for a while and then actually sell the other one, so,
Well, we hold on to it to speed up the process of decommissioning.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Right,
So-
so we could have picked up one last year for half of that.
yeah, 150,000 last year.
But we voted that down, if I
Right.
remember.
Yeah.
So now what are you saying, eat crow, Mark, or?
No, no, I'm just making a point.
I get it.
That
Well,
how
I mean,
how
yep.
things change.
Change so quickly.
Yeah,
Day to day,
it's,
month to
it's
month.
just the market, but, I mean, equipment's one of those moving targets. If it, gets approved, it goes through, and we luck into something where somebody had leased one or whatever, we can maybe get into, a used one at the time that we can find. It's just at the time, for a budget number, we had to go with new because there's just nothing there.
Okay, good enough, thank you.
Additional questions, Commissioner? First and foremost, Mr. Anvick, I want to commend you for the way that you've broken down the various departments of sanitation and whatever. You're right, prior to you joining us, it wasn't as easy to follow and to, be engaged in what your budget is. So you and your team are doing a great job there. I also, when we look through the equipment purchases that you're doing, I think it's very relevant that you're telling us that you're replacing a truck that's 17 years old or 12 years old or whatever the case might be. Obviously, we're all scrutinizing the budgets very closely and the like, and it gives us a real perspective of, that we probably didn't have a good replacement schedule. Obviously, sometimes you don't just replace equipment to replace it, but if your maintenance and all of those types of things that you're dealing with are superseding what common sense tells you to do, so I think that the way that you've presented the equipment portion of your budget in itself is a very good job, and I appreciate that. Still don't like the numbers, but
Yeah.
you've done an amazing job, and your team has of sharing the information, so it makes our decision-making and our analysis of what your budget is easier, I guess. So that's two really positive things. So what type of multiplier are you using for fuel? If, you know, if it was X last year, are you doubling basically your fuel costs?
That was something, I guess,
Mr.
doubled it, yeah.
Yeah, that's, I've been visiting with a lot of business people that are having fuel surcharges and things like that, and those that don't do that, they're budgeting double. They're just doubling from whatever they paid last year, so that's good work too then, okay? Anybody else, commissioners? Anything for Mr. Anvik?
Can I just
Mr.
make
Simmons?
a comment? Thank you, Mayor. In general, and this really goes to all the department heads and Tina, you know, when you come up and you give us your presentation and we're asking questions, it's not personal against anybody. It's just a simple, you know, we want to know the answers and just determine the budget. So you're the messengers in essence here. Don't nobody out there take it personal. You're all doing a great job with us. And we truly appreciate all of us. I think I could say that for the whole board. So just want to let you know that.
Again, you've outlined your requests for employees for the year. Can you tell me how many you're short right now?
As in that we haven't hired. We have 2 current open positions and we have 2 offer letters out that have been accepted. So right now we only have 2 current openings.
Okay,
We have one in the shop and then one in the sewer department.
Okay, very good, thank you. Very well, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Right now, I will show you, we'll go back, now we'll start to be alphabetical, skipping everything that is Matt. He takes up a lot. Let's see. Engineering, okay. We'll start with administration. There really isn't a lot of change in administration. You'll see that the permanent employee salaries went up. That is because we have moved the GIS department out from underneath planning and just into general administration. And I know Commissioner Anderson had asked me that question before earlier and said, why would you do that? Why wouldn't it be somewhere else? And the reason is that GIS has become such a huge part of everything that we do, that all the different departments are becoming more and more involved in the GIS world, and the GIS department is taking in not only assessing police, fire, public works. There's things they can do for all of our different departments, and they assist us a lot. And so I just wanted to explain, that's why we moved them under administration, so they're more of a general. It's kind of like IT is a service department, HR is a service department. Well, GIS has grown to the point where they are a service department. And so that's the explanation for that. Other than that, under administration, there really are no changes. Unless you have some questions for me.
I have a question, and it might be one for Mr. Larson. Take a look at your health insurance. We talk about a 9% increase is what we've got calculated into it. There's a couple of the budgets. When it goes to healthcare, it's jumping dramatically. And it doesn't seem like the calculation please, Mr. Larson.
It's a combination of 2 things that happen there. One is, in the administration, we've moved our funding manager position was in engineering, it's moved up there. And when we look at it originally, we always budget the main. So when we look at that, it might be the full family, where before it might have had just a single. So that's a major change that you're gonna see in some of these ups, because instead of a single, it's a full family, because we don't know what it'll be. The other part is mostly it's the relocation of new employees or the new employees. For example, Matt talked about 3 new employees. So the street department, for example, is going to have a definite increase because we're going to budget it as family. Because we don't know if they're going to select family or single or somewhere along the way. So that's where a lot of your changes are. The other part is, when we budgeted in 2022, we took an election, and so the election might be that I'm just a couple with, just husband and wife. But now, at the end of the year, I had a child, so now I'm moving up to the full family. So there's also changes in election. So our approach is to budget exactly what they've selected and not just budget all full family for everybody.
Yeah.
So those are some of the adjustments.
I appreciate that, but, if you look at communications budget, last year, health insurance was $9,000, $8,913,000. And I understand that, we're requesting one new employee. The new calculation is 36,000, from 9,000 to 36, and we're adding one employee.
So it all depends on the selection of the three that were there. I could have had 3 employees actually where it's single or no insurance, and now they've selected, just a change in family can be 20,000 in 1 year. So in this situation, we have one additional new position, which is gonna pick up a 20,000 between all the different health cares. It's not just health, but it's dental, vision, long-term disability, and those type of insurances. So just one new employee is gonna be 20,000, so right there would put me to 29, and if I have one change from an existing employee, that could easily put me to 36,000.
So on that same topic then, if you look under economic development, we went from 2 employees last year to 1 employee this year, and our health went from 16,000 up to 20,000.
That was based on the election of the 2 employees that were there last year. This year, I'll explain to you that we're only gonna have 1 employee, but because I did not have the name of the person at that time, we're budgeting full family for that 1 employee. So there's your 20,000 number. So yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Larson.
You bet.
And thanks to Jim, I stand corrected. No wonder Robin kind of looked at me funny. The change in the salaries is because of the funding manager position. We do plan on moving GIS under the administrative portfolio because of the work that they do, but not during the budget time, because it's not gonna change anything. They're both in the general fund, and it's just less confusion. So I apologize for that mistake.
I'm sorry, Tina, no, I'm still on the insurance, Jim. I wasn't quite done with you.
Oh.
Sorry, Mayor, because
Please.
I still don't get it. You didn't quite, so in administration for health insurance, it's 25, basically 25.6 right now. But you're saying it's gonna go up to 67, you're budgeting 67.5. That's a lot more than one person. Are you saying like,
3 family plans.
but,
Okay, so I'm gonna get into some details. The prior employee in the assistant administrator's job did not elect any benefits with us, where potentially the current one might have a full
Okay,
family plan.
okay,
So there would
now,
be
okay.
actually a potential of $40,000 change just in those 2 items right there.
okay, I guess I got it. This is also taking, okay.
Yep.
I get that part now, thank you. That's what I needed you to say. Layman's terms.
Are there any more questions on this particular budget before we move forward? Okay, we will move on to assessing. Oh, now you're approved. Okay, the assessing department. Alrighty, the assessing department, the majority of their increase is they're requesting another position. Currently, the city of West Fargo has 2 residential appraisers. And so there's approximately 5,960 parcels per appraiser that they have to look at and deal with every year. That's the highest between Fargo, Bismarck, Minot, Grand Forks, and Dickinson. And Nick has been waiting as long as possible to ask for this position, because when he started, we had just started with our new assessing program, and he has taken that program and made it so streamlined along with our website that I would say you could hold our website for assessing up to anyone in the state or even in the region. It is phenomenal, the work that he's done. And he wanted to wait to hire another residential appraiser until he could see what his staff that he had already could do and what their potential was. And it's gotten now to the point where we're still building a lot of new homes. And so let me see here. Let's see. For instance, one of the pieces of information that he brought was new dwellings per appraiser in the year 2021, because, you know, new dwellings take a lot more time. They've got to physically go out there and remeasure everything and check. Right now, we have 141 new parcels per appraiser in 2021. Bismarck 83, Fargo 112, Minot 22, Dickinson 32, and Grand Forks 31. It's not that he has a problem with the fact that they're able to achieve this, but the concern is as we continue to go forward, right now we're on a 5-year rotation, and they're able to keep up with the new houses as well. It's just straining the employees to the point where if we want to have a really good system and keep the good system that we have, he is in need of another employee. Do you have any questions for me?
Commissioners?
Okay. Next up is the Communications Department.
Good evening, Commissioners. A number of you reached out to me on the exact same question. So I'll go over my goals and then we can address that right away and repeat that question. The goals for the Communication Department in 2023 are going to be continuing to build the new City of West Fargo brand platform that we'll be talking about with each one of you in the next month. I'm excited to go over with you guys. We're going to be developing department standard operating procedures in an effort to essentially gain the efficiency that Nick's department has done so well at. We've been working the last 5 years to get the communication department running and have been doing a lot of cool things, but it's time we get things like records management, measurement, and project management standards in place. And what I've heard from each of you over the last 4 years is the idea of public engagement and the importance of that. So I really want us to focus on building a strategy for that and working with you guys to do that. So those are our goals in 2023. The key items that we've asked for in the 2023 budget, one of the main ones is a request for an upgrade in technology. This upgrade is to serve two purposes. One is for going on site to capture various types of content that we use in our social media. For example, Addie Stewart, who is one of our communications specialists, was at 3 different police and fire department events today to capture images of them training and interacting with the community. She was actually supposed to go to 4, but she physically could not make it to every single opportunity that there was. But those are things that we then put out on social media to help with the engagement with the community, building trust, demonstrating the investments that the City Commission is approving for those departments to do and demonstrating the value back to the community. That technology is also important when we do have those major crises or emergency incidents where we need to be on scene and broadcasting out to our community. We need to be able to go live. We need to be able to control the message in those instances. The technology that we have right now, we've purchased a few bargain items over the years, as well as the camera that you saw Rachel using tonight is a camera that I inherited from the Economic Development Department when I came on 5 years ago. We haven't purchased a new one since I came on, so we just feel like now is the time that we need to start looking at upgrades in technology and get with the time. There's cameras that we can wirelessly post from and just make things more efficient. The photography request that I made for $15,000, I've rescinded that request. Commissioner Simmons, I appreciate the conversation that we had. There's collaboration with West Fargo Events that we can be doing. They do an amazing job with all the events that they do, and they're doing double duty to get those assets out there. And so I just need to do a better job of working with them and get them to the Greater Fargo-Moorhead EDC and the Convention and Visitors Bureau so we can make sure that we're represented in those materials. So I appreciate that conversation and just wanted to repeat that was a rescinded request on that budget item. The $6,000 line item for a social media archiving tool is probably the least exciting item on my budget this year. It's a tool that is really related to open records requests in North Dakota. Social media is subject to records requests, and we have obligation to be archiving our social media so that if there ever was a records request related to if there was someone who was putting content on our social media pages that needed to be hidden or deleted because it broke our policy in terms of abusive language or profanity or illegal content, we have to go through a process of archiving it so that we can make sure that we can defend ourselves if that person were to ever request information on as to why that happened, which we can do, but we can only capture it in the moment as to how it appears, and there's a lot of technical information that goes with it and metadata that goes with it that wouldn't hold up, that wouldn't hold up, and we wouldn't be able to track if that person had edited their comment or had made changes to it. So there's software out there that archives automatically social media websites. I've researched a few. They all come in around the $6,000 mark. The city of Fargo has one right now that they're using. There's some extra tools that they come with, some little value adds. One of the tools will let us look at what the sentiment of the individuals on our social media sites are over like a week or a month or a year or whatever we want to set it at. So during the demo, he pulled for every single social media channel that we had linked. He pulled for the last 2 weeks what the sentiment was on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 was negative, 10 was positive, and it was rated at like a 9 point something, which was amazing. And he was pretty impressed with us. So that was great. And that's part of the measurement that I'm really interested in getting to you guys as well. But it's kind of a tool that runs in the background that we need to button up the resources that we have for those just-in-case moments. And then the last request is a communication coordinator position. This position is to help us really get those records management processes in place, the measurement, the project management standards, but also the project overflow work that my 2 communication specialists have right now. As I mentioned, Addie needed to get to 4 places today, and she just physically could not get to them. And we have lots of examples of just times where we're not getting to every single thing we need to get to, or all the projects that we want to get to. And so right at this point, it's a matter of either pulling back on things or prioritizing or looking at this type of position that's a entry-level position that can help us continue to offer the same level of service without having to draw back. And so those are the requests I have. Any questions?
Questions from Mrs. Richard?
I just have a couple, so thank you, Mayor. So the $6,000 item, you said Fargo has this as well, so it's something, do all communities have to start doing this? Is this something that is?
All communities should do it, yes.
But is it state law or anything like that, or is it just for our own, which is
For-
fine, I'm not saying.
It's for our own protection,
Okay.
yes. And it would be, we would be required to fill the request under open records requests, and this would be a tool that would assist us, that would make sure that we do it
So it's
correctly.
for our benefit, I get that, so.
Yep.
The next question I have is on the new coordinator you want. I'm just reading what you wrote. It says, this position will assist the other members of the department with overflow work. What in reference to what's overflow work?
So like I said before, we have requests to be on site we have opportunities to be on site like Addie.
Okay, that's what you're referring to.
Yep.
I wasn't sure if you're
Yep.
taking
And-
on some of their work.
No.
That's the way I read,
Well, yes, when
Well, in
when my
reference to
staff
communications.
that I take on.
No, that this person would take on. I mean, they're not gonna take over the PDs patrolling the streets, is
No,
what I'm saying.
no, sorry, no, not at all. No, but one other area that I do see this person helping with tremendously is coordinating with the administrative department to help with the content from these meetings and getting them out to the public and
Okay.
organizing them. And the new civic clerk platform that we have for agenda management, that we can bookmark it and we can do a lot more with it. And I think this role will be key in coordinating with that, and it'll help with take what we can do and offer even more to our residents. Yes.
I have a question on the one new position. From the full-time salaries from 22 to 23, there's an increase of $114,000. Although mentioning the new position would be entry level, it seems like a big jump.
Yes. In 2021, there was an adjustment to my two positions in my department. I had a communication coordinator and a media relations specialist, and it was restructured to become two communication specialists at the same level because the work needed to happen in a way that I had two individuals who could work much more independently so that more work could be done by them without having to could be done at a different level. So that position was graded higher than what those two positions were at the time. So there was an adjustment in that year.
Okay, to your other current full-time staff?
Yes.
Okay.
Did I say that correctly?
So
Yes.
you're changing,
But there's no change in those positions from 2022 to 2023.
well, that's where the difference is though, Melissa, from 2022 to 2023, that's the 114,
Yeah.
not 2021.
Sorry. The 2022 budget, just like this one, was prepared last year, starting in March, ending in July, August. And the changes to those positions did not take place prior to the budget being finalized. So therefore, we had to just incorporate that adjustment into the budget. That excuse me, that happens in a lot of departments during the course of the year. And they're not humongous swings, and it's not adding another employee. It's just adjusting a position to compensate somebody for the correct work that they're doing. Because, a lot of these jobs here are fluid. We have people take on more work or more items, or all of a sudden we realize, oh, shoot, that we thought it was going to be this, but the job is really this. And so we're reviewing job descriptions on a regular basis to make sure we're paying people accurately. We aren't just going around just raising people's salaries. It's if there is a reason, if there is an actual change, and then Jenna handles all that. She works with MRA and works with the person who is the department head, and she's very, very good at sifting through what is important, what is necessary, and what can wait.
So basically, if there was any kind of adjustment made to a position, it's not reflected in what we're seeing in this packet, and for the 22 budget.
Correct.
Okay.
Additional questions, commissioners?
I think I had another one.
Yep.
I do want to, can you put your goals back up, or it was under that? Yeah, okay. I want to say I really, really like how you have your goals, your public engagement strategy. That's awesome, fantastic. I'd like to know more about the new City West Fargo brand platform. What your thoughts are with that? I don't see anything budgeted in that at this point. Is that correct? So
Yes, so when we approved the contract for Chandler Thinks, one of the directives I received from the commission was to come back with a request for budget for implementation. But there is a $70,000 line item under marketing in my budget.
Okay, that one caught-
and that would be for continued brand support in 2023. I am not planning to come back to you with I don't know what the amount is, but it will not be an astronomical request for brand implementation, because I have in the 2022 budget, I have money for video, a website redesign. Those things have already been budgeted for, so I don't think I'm going to be coming back with anything that's going to be a giant sticker shock. And this 70,000 will be sufficient for 2023.
okay. Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner.
Thank you. So Melissa, if I'm reading this right, the 70,000, you didn't spend it from the 2022 budget, right? Or am I
It's the same amount.
is it the same?
It's not carryover.
So we budget, maybe I am reading it wrong. So we budgeted 70,000 in 2022, and you're asking for another 70,000 in 2023?
Yes.
Did we spend all the money in 2022? I thought it was, the whole branding was 70,000 to get it done.
There's 70,000 in 2021 for the branding study, and I have 70,000 in 2022 to do branding work, and I'm asking for 70,000 in 2023 to continue to do branding work.
Commissioner Simmons and
Holy
other commissioners, I want you to bear in mind that, the money for this is coming out of economic development sales tax. So the money to have any brand, the one we have now or whatever, this will come out of economic development sales tax because the pushing of ads, the pushing of videos, all those things are to try and encourage people to come to West Fargo.
So I understand, Tina, and that's great, but I don't care where the money's coming from. It's come from somewhere. My question, in the last 2 years then, 2021, 2022, right? We've spent $140,000, right, so far?
Well, we're in the process of spending that.
In the process, by the end of the year. So what have we got to show for it? We haven't, as a commission, I haven't seen anything on that.
In the next month, we're coming with the new brand to show you.
And then it'll be another 70,000.
And then we're working, and then we have materials to go through the end of the year for another 70,000, yes.
So that would be a total over 3 years of $200-some thousand. Wow, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Additional questions for Ms.? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioners. I'm going to review the court, and then I'll actually review the economic development budget after that. Tina and I decided, flipped a coin, I lost, so I do economic development. Okay, for court, not a lot of changes from prior years. There's a staff of 3, the clerk of court department that handles a lot of processing between 3 major functions of court, the judge, the prosecutor, and the police department, and also the defendants. So that's their role. There's a lot of technical stuff required, as there are in many of our departments. No major changes in the budget as we roll forward into 2023. We did move up the budget for the prosecution, and mostly to reflect what's been happening in actual in prior years. That is really the only changes that there are in the court budget. Be glad to answer any questions regarding that.
Questions? All right. Move on to economic development, Mr.
Thank you.
Larson.
Economic development, actually, this is a department, you're gonna see actually a reduction of expense. This is a department where it's been reorganized by administration, and instead of having 2 positions, it'll reflect a single position. It's moved it from a director level down to a manager level. Probably so there's no major changes in the dollars. The one point I do want to point to clarify here is the expense of the economic development department is covered through the economic development sales tax. And so at the end of the year, if they, like in 2022, they will not be spending that entire budget. So only the funds that are expended in that year are what's transferred from economic development. So that's, it is not an automatic transfer for the full amount of the budget. It will be actual. Any questions regarding the economic development budget?
Commissioners?
Thank you, I do, Mayor. So, thank you. In that position, I know that, we're anticipating, obviously, it's very successful. And she does a great job, and I'm confident she will. But that's a year. Tina, are we not, if things go well, we're not budgeting for an assistant at all for her at this point for all of 2023?
No, we are not at this time because we want to watch
Right.
how it develops. And currently, planning has been assisting with economic development, and so we'll work closely with the planning department. And if there is a decision that we feel the best course of action is to get a second person in there, that would have to come before commission. That's how we felt it was best.
Okay, so, because I'm thinking by, October, November of next year, hopefully, I'm hoping that she needs help.
Correct.
But honestly, I'm hoping that she needs help because that means we're successful.
Correct. And because it's paid for out of a special revenue fund, the economic development sales tax, it doesn't affect any tax levies, and we can
Right.
come to you
Yep.
guys and make the request, and then you determine if you want to go there or not.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Jim.
Any questions regarding?
Any additional questions on economic development? No? That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Well,
Mr. Scott.
there's two of us because we're the halftime show.
Go.
Figured it's been pretty dry here for, gotta add something. You had the opportunity to meet our city engineer, Dan Hansen, a couple meetings ago, but being this is only his second week, I figured I would be the face of the engineering budget, but he's certainly here to help answer any questions you may have. We're still the baby of the group. We're 3 years old now as a department, growing rapidly, still somewhat in a honeymoon phase, hopefully with the commission, and you guys will go a little easy on us tonight. Really our goals for 2023, first and foremost, is to fill all the approved positions that we will have. We've had an open position for over a year now for a stormwater engineer. This market is certainly very competitive. The local surrounding area with all the work going on, hiring engineers, technicians, public works staff, so on and so forth, has been certainly a challenge. So I think that's certainly our goal so that we can continue to offer the services that our city has come to expect. We have a lot of other goals relating to policies, ordinances, cleaning those up, improving those, modernizing our standards, so on and so forth. We've also, as the engineering department, has taken on administrating some of our permitted activities, things like right-of-way management, our over-dimensional ordinances and programs. We'd like to integrate our permitting programs with other departments, so like the building inspections and how they're administrating permits. Can we integrate those so that we are more efficient and saving costs where we can? Working with Public Works and Planning to create new land development codes, and then working with Public Works and Finance on pavement management policies and financial models that we can integrate with the capital improvement plan. Our most notable changes in the 2023 budget are really reflecting new positions. We have a request for 2 full-time staff, one being a survey manager who would oversee our surveying efforts, as well as, and when I say surveying efforts, that's the out in the field surveys that we do. We with the Lagoon project, for example, the lagoon decommissioning, as Public Works is out there with their equipment, we will go out there and provide some surveying services so they know where, what elevations to get to, and so on and so forth. So there's the field side of surveying. Those are also the what I'd call the office side of surveying, things like land acquisitions, easements, right-of-way, where we have historically relied heavily upon consulting services. I'm hoping that this position can bring more of that in-house, similar to the engineering activities that we are providing. The other position is for an engineering tech, level 1, so it's an introductory technician level. That position will help with utility locating, The utility locating department there's currently 2 full-time locators, and the locating supervisor is also administrating our right-of-way management permits. So we need help in locating, but we also need help in inspecting activities, whether it be construction or the permitted activities that are being done. So for example, when Xcel Energy came through last year doing all of that work, we need eyes and ears out in the field, and that's what this position would, again, help do, which allows us to rely less upon consulting services. Along with the 2 new staff, we have probably the most notable change, other change besides staff is, as you can see towards the bottom, under furniture and equipment over $5,000, we have a $35,000 request. That is for a new vehicle as well as new locating equipment for a 3rd locator. So the vehicle, we do have an engineering fleet. Between what would be 11 staff next year, we have, I believe, 6 or 7 vehicles that we try to share accordingly. Of course, the utility locators, they have a designated vehicle that they're always in. But between the 4 or 5 other engineers and technicians, we're usually sharing between 2 or 3 vehicles. So with that, I can answer any questions. And let me know if you want to hear from Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question on the vehicles, because I know right now you share them. Do you share them, first of all, you don't have 3 or 4 vehicles, do you, within the engineer department?
Within engineering, I forget the exact number. We actually have, we have 3 for the locators, and
They need them all the time though, right? So
Yes.
so don't count them, count just what you guys have.
I believe it's 3.
3 vehicles
Yep,
between,
I'd have to double check, but we have one truck and then 2 other, we have a Kia Sportage and a Acadia, I believe.
are you having trouble right now having one open when you need to go out?
If it has come up, and then what we do is we walk down, there is still a general pool, I believe a couple vehicles over there
Yeah.
that we can get into, and if not, I know on a number of occasions, for example, Jerry has just taken his own truck and we'll head out to a job site. It's brief, but we do want to be, we don't want to encourage that, because an employee having their personal vehicle out on a job site is a bit of a risk, so.
And it sounds like I'm against your vehicles, but I'm not. I'm actually trying to say I think you need I do think you need another vehicle. Because you shouldn't have to, go to a bulletin board and look for your vehicle if you got to go somewhere. I mean, I think you're bringing enough revenue into the city to have your own vehicle is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Commissioners, additional questions? Mr. Scott or Mr. Hanson? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'll be handling finance. It's unfortunate you got to get 2 departments back to back, but we got HR coming, which is always fun and enjoyable. So, right? Okay. Finance. On a sheet, no changes really going into next year. Most of it is inflationary or staff inflation. As we move into 2023, the goal is to implement the time and attendance payroll. I'll be honest, we've actually have already put that on hold for next year based on some staffing changes, so we won't talk about that now. Complete the implementation of the new payment processing platform for utility billing. We're implementing, that'll start coming in September, and that'll continue on for about 6 months. That'll enhance service to our residents in the utility billing. They'll be able to actually look up and see their bill and get some history on it, enhance how they can make payment. And right now, we have some errors that happen, unfortunately, on a regular basis through our payment platform. This will alleviate those and allow staff more time to do other finance functions, so we're looking forward to that. As always, we'll continue to handle the bonding for capital projects. I think we've been doing a better job of making sure we get those done on a more timely basis, and also tighter to the actual bonding amounts that are needed with that. So again, no material changes to the budget. Probably the biggest one you might see is the change on service charges, and we just needed to bring that up to reflect actual that we recognized in 2021. We didn't bring enough in for '22, so. Service charges are merchant fees, fees with banks, things of that nature. Questions?
Questions for Mr. Larson? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chief. Welcome.
Good evening, Commission President Dardis, members of the commission. So our '23 budget numbers are in front of you. I'll briefly go over the goals real quick. This year's, or next year's budget. Currently we have 25 full-time, 33 part-time employees for a total of 58. Last year we responded to 2,539 calls for service. That's an increase of 459% back to 2017. 266 times we had concurrent calls, no companies available, strained our system and increased our response times. We had a little over $1 million in property loss to fire. 1 civilian received burns from a kitchen fire. No firefighters were killed or injured in fires, and there were no civilian fire deaths. Our budget goals for the year, for next year, we are looking to hire 9 new firefighters to staff Engine 76 at the new building, and this will be the first full-time staffed company north of I-94. Hiring 1 firefighter to complete staffing of the rescue company at the South Station. Currently, we are 1 firefighter short. That would allow that station to have 5 firefighters daily. 2 new battalion chiefs for a full-time fire incident commander and citywide supervisor on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week from fire headquarters. Hiring an office coordinator to assist in administrative tasks and be the first contact with the public at the new building. A fire inspector to increase the frequency of fire code compliance inspections and try to get to 2 annual inspections a year from all commercial occupancies. Replacing a grass truck, adding a staff car and a service truck for equipment services. Increasing the scope of annual firefighter physicals to include preventive heart disease screenings and advanced cancer screenings to address sudden cardiac arrest and cancer rate in firefighters, and adding funding to provide new mental health services for firefighters. The next page here is our breakout, and I'll address 4 things I see right now, and maybe that'll head off some of the questions, because it is a little confusing. We've been working with our object codes on our budget. So there's at least 2 examples of object codes that have been combined, and it looks like a giant increase, and it's an increase, but it's not a giant one. So the first one here is, and the breakout is object 245 and 340. We've combined all of those to 340, and that's why it went from 40,000 this current year to 107,000 next year. It's because the line item moved from 245 combined down to 340. All total, that's a increase in $11,000 in training. Those 2 items are training items. Second thing to point out is 641 and 864, and these are capital improvement costs, and we were classifying a lot of things as capital improvements when really the correct accounting code is a depreciated value over $5,000, so we moved them all underneath that line of 864. So you're looking at a $51,000 increase there. Object code 424, gas and diesel, a little over a half going up, and we tried to figure those calculations out based on, number one, the increase in gallons used just keeps going up and up with every call we go on, but then also the price increase. We're trying to converge those 2 points to figure out accurately where we're going to be. I hope we're pretty close. And then 527, number 527, utilities, gas and electric costs went up. Our rates went up, so our budget went up. Those were some of the things on that schedule. to show obviously the increase in employees, like I had just mentioned. And then we do have a list of capital expenses, and they've all been coded under 641. So that's equipment under $5,000 per unit. We have multiple units on there, and that's why those bottom line numbers are over 5,000, but they actually are coded to 641. And then 3 vehicles. The 3 vehicles would be a staff car, a mechanic's truck, and a grass truck that would be dual purpose with a plow, so that we can plow in the winter. Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me again when the new fire station is supposed to open or predicted to open?
We're hoping June 1st.
Okay.
So it's going to be within June and July next year, next summer.
Okay, with the new positions, 9 of the new positions were full-time staff for the new station. With this budget, is that taken into account that they'd start later, or is that like those salaries, would they be beginning in January of '23, or is that scheduled out?
That's a great question. So within the hiring, we actually have 3 different schedules that we're looking at. So the 9 people for the new station wouldn't start till July. The 1 solitary firefighter would start in January to go down south. The 2 battalion chiefs would start in January. Hold on. Yes, 2 battalion chiefs starting in January. The office coordinator in July, and inspector in October. So
Okay.
we've paced all of them out over the year, depending on when we think we're going to need them.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
Yep.
Additional questions for the chief? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Oh, there we go, HR. Give it up to the HR director.
Try to be as fun and enjoyable as Jim says I am. For the HR budget, we do have just a few key requests in there. The first one is with the addition of the safety coordinator who started last August, we found we do have a need for a safety budget. Within that budget, it would cover first aid kits, AED replacements, training, different things like that. So we have a small $2,750 to fund those needs across the board. If all of the position requests for 2023 are approved, that will bring our FTE count to about 300 employees. Currently in the HR department, there's myself and an HR generalist to handle HR requests for those 300 employees. So we are in a position where an additional person would be helpful, but I am only looking to request an intern at this time, just to take off some of that cost and, see if we can, as long as we can manage with an intern. And then the last request that I have, I requested $25,000 to complete a market data study. So a few years ago, we did the full compensation study, and what that did is it developed a new pay structure, the step and grade pay structure. We updated all of our job descriptions at that time. So then everyone was moved to this new system. With this study, it wouldn't be a new system. We would still stay on the system that we're on. It would just be doing a market analysis, comparing us to other entities within our area. The reason why 2023 would be a good time to do this is because currently there are multiple entities that are conducting compensation studies right now. In 2022, the ones I know of are West Fargo Schools, City of Fargo, Cass County, City of Grand Forks, and City of Minot are all currently doing compensation studies right now. So by us looking at doing that in 2023, we're able to utilize the data that they have compiled and the changes that they will potentially make. And so that way we can have the most up-to-date data to use for our market analysis. And that's all I have. If you guys have any questions.
I have one.
Which line item is that, 25?
It's under the contract services.
Okay, that's, I had a question. It went from 18,000 to 44, so I was like,
Okay, yep, that's where it, that's where it was put.
So the entities that you mentioned that are doing studies in 2022, we have working relationships with them, and some of that data will be shared?
Yep, so what happens is normally, when an organization asks you to participate in a study, they give you a free copy of their finalized report. So we should be getting copies of all of these reports once they are completed. And then MRA, who created our compensation structure and who are the expert compensation analysts that we use, they will then be able to analyze all of that data, compare it with benefits, salary, all of that, to see where we are at in the market. I don't foresee significant changes. I think that we're pretty competitive, but I think through the way that the market is going right now and with all of these studies that are being conducted, I think it's important that in order to retain the good staff that we have, we make sure that we are still in line.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. The other entities are doing this. We're going to borrow it. But the 25,000 is for somebody to analyze the data that they're.
So what I did is I pulled invoices from when we did the original study. So one conversation we had is that it is a placeholder. I don't, because we're doing just the market analysis, I don't have the exact amount of what that would be. But based on the invoices and the cost before, that was the estimated amount for the market analysis.
Will this have to come back to us as a commission to vote on doing that? Or
To complete
not
the
if we
study?
approve this, right?
Yep, I think that's a Tina question. I think if you approve it within the budget, then we would be able to do it. But any changes that would be requested because of it would then come back to commission.
Mrs. Fisher?
Also, because it would be a contract with an agency, that would come before the commission. So it would come before you, before it could get started. I mean, even though you've approved it in the budget, then we would have an accurate dollar amount, and you would have to approve that.
Commissioner Simmons?
So, you know how I feel about these already,
know.
right? You guys all know how I feel about it. Quite honestly, I'd rather take the $25,000 and give it to the employees right now, just give them, because I don't, we've done these how many times, and I mean, we know what Fargo pays, so we know, just common sense tells me we're gonna have to pay pretty close to what they pay. These studies will come back and tell us the same thing time and time again, Jenna, and I understand, again, it isn't personal, it's your job, but my job is to look at it and say, we're gonna throw away 25,000 grand, I'd rather just give it to the employees right now and be done with it.
Well,
Because I'm always afraid, and this is gonna happen, as you stand there and say it, they're gonna come back, this company, and say, yeah, you gotta pay more money. It's happened every single time.
Well, and that, I mean, with the market and with inflation at the rate that it is, it's not just a retention piece for our current staff, it's a recruiting piece as well. If we aren't competitive with where the market's at, we aren't going to be able to.
Totally understand that, Jenna, totally understand. But all we gotta do is make a call to Fargo and say, what are you guys paying over there? And we know, because they tell us, and we know we gotta pay that. So why would we continue to fork out for a study that's gonna tell us the same thing?
Yeah, it's not just for the pay piece of it, it goes through the whole, look, the benefits, the holidays, the time off, all of it, and it compares it with other entities, not just Fargo, because we need to be competitive throughout the entire market, because we may lose somebody to Grand Forks, we may lose somebody to Cass County, if we're not staying in line with those agencies as well.
But can we not make a simple phone call to Grand Forks and say and in fact, you probably go online and say, what are your benefits? What's your 401k? I mean, you can do all that ourselves.
Yep, we can, but I'm not an expert compensation analyst, so that is why we would have an organization or a contract service do this for us to make sure that we're taking the data and putting it in the right places.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any additional questions for Ms. Bohm? Thank you.
All right, thank you. I hope that was fun and enjoyable.
Jim misled us. We're gonna blame it all on Jim.
Yeah, yeah. Tina's next.
Well, in absence of an IT director, you get me who knows very little about IT. The IT budget, what happens for that budget, because it's so citywide, is the IT director meets with each department head and goes through their hardware, software needs, things that would have to go through IT, and they create individual budgets for each department within the city. They then go back and create the IT budget for the items that don't fall into a specific department that are more citywide. So for this coming year, we are at $1.3 million across the city. Oh, Jim gave me that sheet too, and I can't find it. And that is including all departments, city technology, all the way through administration. It includes library, economic development, everything. A couple of factors that weigh into this budget are Office, like I said, Office 365. We're way behind the 8 ball because we should have had that a long time ago. When we went into COVID a few years ago, we had to implement Skype, which was actually no longer being maintained by the company because it was going out of service. So we need to get up to date. We need to train our employees on how to properly use it. And that is included in the budgets as you see here. Do you have specific questions for IT?
Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor, again. Tina, I just have one, and it's the technology budget. First of all, I just make the comment, this is, with what's happened, this is gonna be a hard kind of budget to figure out. I think we're gonna be doing some guessing.
This was already completed before our IT director resigned. My only concern is I had wanted to bring somebody in that works with governmental IT specifically, and part of that was to review our IT budget and what we have, what we don't have, and give it. But that was a different company. Right now, I'm waiting on a proposal from one that'll do security checks and some of that stuff, but not this.
Okay, so my question is now, on technology, it went from 191 to 324. And doesn't each department gets billed their own technology, right? Correct?
Yes,
So,
but
so is this, that big jump? Yeah, but is this big jump just for technology? Is that for their, what are they jumping for, I guess, here?
I will tell you, and then if you guys would like to see the detail at any point, I can email it out. But the citywide expenditures, the ones that were increases, there is an additional cost for the implementation of Office 365. There is a storage array at Public Works. That's another $50,000 that needs replacement. It is not good. We're hoping it'll make it to the end of the year.
But Tina, don't they charge those, doesn't IT charge those departments?
These are the things that are kept in this budget, and that the storage array at Public Works is where we send our backup of every single thing we have here in the city. So if that fails and we fail, we lose everything. So it's pretty important.
So this, absolutely, so this big jump, I'm saying, is just within the technology sector?
That one you're talking about is just within the citywide, not department specific.
Okay.
If it touches more than one department, it comes into here, yes.
Okay,
So
that's
it'd be
what I
like
wanted.
For the licensing of 365 for every computer that the city has.
Well, actually,
No, that gets.
the individual licenses are within the individual
They are,
departments.
okay.
The implementation cost and any other costs associated with getting us up and going, that is in here.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is very expensive. We have AP replacements, it's only done every 5 years, that's $12,000. I don't know what byte speed value H81I is, but we're doing that, and it hasn't been done for a while. And that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. 15,000. There's some things that dropped down because our antivirus was renewed, it will be renewed in 2022, so it drops down to 1,000 for 2023. Yeah, those would be the major items that are in just the IT part of it itself. Now, if you want more detail, I can't give it to you, but Jim Larson knows more of the lingo than I do, and he could answer that.
Yeah, no, I think, Tina, this is a hard one. I understand that. This is gonna be, when we bring in a new person, they're probably gonna, it's gonna change somewhat. Kinda like when we started the PD and we, remember how we didn't have the budget that first year and then Chief came back and
Yep.
I got a feeling that's how this is gonna work as well.
Commissioner Olson?
I've noticed on virtually every department's budget line item, everyone will say per IT schedule, per IT schedule.
And that's this schedule.
Okay.
That's this.
And that
So
lays
this
out all
schedule
of the-
has a detailed breakdown for every single department in the city. So when they say per IT schedule, that's what this is.
I'd like
And-
to see a copy of that too.
Yep, I will send it to all of you, and I'll give you this copy, Commission President Dartis. But yeah, that's what this is. I just printed this out today before I came over. But yes, that way you can see what each department is doing. And I know there was a question on like laptops. We rotate laptops on a certain schedule because if we wait too long and they break down, you know how fun that is. And we've got all of our information that we work on there. So it's very crucial that we rotate them on, I think it's a 4-year basis, isn't it? Remember, 4, yeah, a 4-year basis. And then the ones that are brought back are wiped and then sold.
Why were you pointing at me?
I wasn't meaning to. I was just
Everybody
pointing.
knows I have problems up
I was
here,
just
I know.
pointing at you. No, it wasn't.
I'm just teasing you.
That's okay, I can take it.
We have to have some laughter in here too, guys and girls.
Additional questions with regarding to the Information Technology Department?
When they're sold, what happens with the revenue?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, what?
When old equipment is sold, what happens to the revenue?
It goes back into the general fund because they're a general fund department. So then it goes into a line item for like sales of equipment or whatever in the general fund. I have to track that down because James always just did it. But I have to talk to IT and find out exactly what the process is so that I can give you a better explanation than that.
That's fine, that answered
Okay.
Aren't you getting your
Right.
checks, you mean?
it. Right.
Anyone else additional? Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, President Dartis and Commissioners. So I'm here to talk to you about the Planning and Zoning budget for 2023. First off, the Planning and Zoning Department is actually made up of 3 different divisions. For purposes of this budget here, Planning Division, the Building Inspections Division, and then the GIS Division. As was mentioned earlier, the GIS Division, we will be transitioning over to administrations here later this year. But just to highlight a few things here on the cover page, starting with some of our goals for 2023. Within the Planning Division, we're looking to complete some updates to the development entitlement review process, which includes everything from cleaning up some of our entitlement application forms, clarifying processes, what things are required to constitute a complete application, making things more clear to the developer as well as the general public, and some of those communications that go along with that whole process. Additionally, we're looking to initiate a long-range kind of proactive planning program. Currently, I think the last time we did anything in great depth was with the West Fargo 2.0 comprehensive plan update, or comprehensive plan, back in 2017-ish. Within the Inspections Division, we're looking to complete implementation of the iWorks building permitting software. That's the software system used to facilitate the building permit application and review and kind of data management process. Also looking to hire Deputy Inspections Administrator to help lead that department, as our current Inspections Administrator is nearing retirement within the next handful of years here. Lastly, within the GIS division, looking to overhaul and update the city's asset management and infrastructure geodatabase system. A lot of the information that we currently have is spotty in places and not perfectly accurate, and so that is a huge undertaking that they'll be looking to kind of prioritize in next year. Also transition management of emergency addressing and street addressing data from the county over to the city. That's something that has been talked about for a number of years. Now that West Fargo is a fairly large city, relatively speaking, the county manages a lot of the addressing and emergency service data management for a lot of the smaller communities in the county. West Fargo is no longer one of those small communities. So as far as some of the material changes for the 2023 budget, there's two that I wanted to highlight here. The first is an increase in allocation for professional services, and that's to aid in citywide coordination and planning in advance of future development. Probably the primary focus area there will be the northwest growth area as the city is built out on the south end, and as the diversion, as we near completion of the diversion in the next coming years, there's a large potential for a big shift in development pressure to the city's northwestern growth area. And so there's a need to kind of coordinate internally here and across departments and across partner jurisdictions and partner agencies as well in order to develop some strategies prior to us receiving applications for annexation and city services and everything that goes along with that. The second item there is an increased allocation for service agreements for LiDAR and associated aerial imagery collection. That's actually done every 3 years, which is why it's not included in last year's budget. That's done at the metro-wide level. It's a partnership between all the local jurisdictions here to fly a flight and capture those images and the associated data that comes along with that. So that's the budget in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Nelson?
So you've highlighted the increase for professional services. Last year was 50,000, we've jumped to 200,000. So do you have a breakdown of how much for what it would cost for the northwest area? How much money are you looking for that, and how much is for LiDAR? Just to give a ballpark figure there.
I believe the LiDAR is something around 20,000. That's I think included one of those pages. The change in professional services is from 50 to 200,000, and there's nothing super magical about that number, I will say. Something like a master plan for a northwest growth area, for example, 200,000 is probably at the low end of something that's as complex and comprehensive as that, because it really is kind of multi-disciplinary in terms of the planning aspects, the utility servicing aspects. Those are kind of the main ones, and then any coordination between. We obviously do a lot of coordination with the school district and the future planning and facility, master planning that they do. PD, fire, emergency services, their long-range planning for future growth as well. It kind of encompasses all of that, and there's obviously a large public participation component to that as well. And so I will say there's a lot of need out there, and that's something that we're hoping to tackle in 2022 is getting a good assessment of what that need is, what our priorities are. The West Fargo 2.0 plan does a really good job of identifying at a high level what we should be focusing on as we look to the future, 20 years from now. And so really the intent here would be to utilize that funds to kind of create that roadmap from where we are today to how we get to achieve that long-range vision.
So West Fargo 3.0?
I wouldn't say that. That's very high level. The idea here is to start to dig into some of the detail and in order to implement and go from there.
My question's along the same line as that. I guess I don't fully understand it, so I guess I'm feeling like we're guessing on that number a little bit. So what happens if you don't get that? What happens if you only get 100,000? Can you function?
You know, I think we do a couple different options. And I will say, just maybe a primer, I do want to have some future discussions with you guys here in the coming months on what those priorities are and how you guys would kind of rank some of that need. If it was, 100,000, we could potentially look at stretching it out over a 2-year period, for example, or something like that. There's a lot of different ways to go about that, so.
Mrs. Fisk.
President Dardis, I want to also clarify, just so that you know as a commission, there's a number of items throughout this budget that technically are capital improvement sales tax funded or economic development sales tax funded. In this case, when we were working on the budget, we felt that planning, because it's so important to plan how we're going to move forward so we don't have haphazard growth. We felt that this was something that belonged in the CIP and paid for out of capital improvement sales tax. So if it comes in at $100,000, we'd come in and that's where the money would come. If it comes in at $225,000, again, come in and you guys could talk about that. So, sorry, Aaron.
That's helpful. Thanks.
Additional questions? Mr. Nelson? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm fine.
Welcome, Deputy Chief.
Good evening, President Dardis and other commissioners. First of all, my name's Pete Nielsen. For those that don't know me, I'm the Assistant Chief. Chief Otterness is unable to be here tonight. He is out of state watching his daughter compete in a dance competition, so I'm what you get. But they always say they save the best for last, so. Some of the things that we're looking at on the future goals for the 2023 is, number one will be our staffing levels. First of all, the national average for police officer staffing is in the range of 1.8 to 2.6 per 1,000 residents. West Fargo currently has 40,000 residents, and utilizing the lowest number of 1.8 means we should be at 72 officers. If you take the SRO unit out of our police officer area, that would leave us at 11 officers short to fill the lowest national income or lowest national average. So right now we are currently asking for 5 additional police officers. This is to supplement the current staffing and increase our patrol division numbers. Current minimum staffing of the police department right now, as we sit, is 3 officers and 1 supervisor. Our current officers are, they're going to 30,000 calls for service a year. So if you do the math in your head, having 4 officers, or 3 officers and 1 supervisor on the street stretches things extremely thin for our staff. A lot of times when that happens, we have officers that are going to these calls that are going by themselves, and sometimes the individuals that we deal with can be somewhat unruly. So with that, we'd like to up our staff on with the 5 additional officers. We'd also like to hire 1 SRO, a school resource officer. This is a request from the West Fargo School District. This would cover Horace High School, and that would be fully funded by the West Fargo Public School staff. We'd also like to hire a full-time administrative assistant. This assistant would report to the chief of police and also the command staff. Right now we have our business manager, Chris Davidson, who put together the book that you have in front of you. Chris does a wonderful job on doing this, but Chris is currently almost operating in a 2-person or a 2-job role. She's extremely busy, and we'd like to take some of those duties away from her and possibly give those to an administrative assistant. Another goal for 2023 and another expenditure would be the body-worn camera system. I know this has come before you previously, and Chief Otterness explained some of the programming with that. The program that we believe that would be very beneficial to protecting our officers. It's being transparent to the community. It's gaining the public trust, and also allows us to identify any training needs that we have for the officers, along with possible training needs that we could do with the public. We've currently applied for some, thanks to Jim, we've applied for some matching funding federal grants. We have not heard from those yet, but hopefully some of that will come back to us and we'll be able to offset some of that pricing that's going to be coming over a period of 5 years. We'd also like to hire a full-time record specialist individual. That person would help maintain and manage our body-worn camera system if that gets approved. Right now we have support specialists that are working within the police department. They're extremely busy as well, so we'd like to have a person that is designated to just that. You'll see that our training has gone up, not a lot. It's only gone up approximately $5,000 within that budget, and with that is $4,000 of that would go towards body-worn cameras training for the officers and staff. And one of the last things that you'll see that goes the budget increases is there's in 2023 would be our gas and oil, like everybody else has said in front of you. That jump is due to the current economy, which all of you know. Right now, the gas prices per gallon in North Dakota is $4.72 a gallon. Last year, when we put the budget out, it was $3 per gallon, so that's why there's an increase in that line item. Currently, we have 55 vehicles that we maintain within that gas and oil section, and out of those 55, 10 of those are assigned to our SRO unit, and the city maintains and picks up the pricing for gas for all of those maintenance for the vehicles. With that being said, I know that was as fast as I could go because I was getting harassed by a few people behind me saying, please hurry up.
Questions?
Which line was the body camera equipment in?
That's what I'm looking for.
That is in,
It's not in here, yeah, it's a,
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's not in this
if you,
version, right?
if you look on page 55 of your,
Isn't it?
Yeah, but,
Oh, over here.
Oh, the police.
your book,
Of this one?
yeah,
Okay.
but it, Pete, is it in this one too? It must be in your budget somewhere, right?
It is.
Do you see where it was?
I didn't,
Yeah, I couldn't find it either.
It's probably non-depreciation. I was just
line
looking.
641.
641.
Oh,
Furniture and
300,000.
equipment?
Oh, that big one. Okay. Equipment.
I should have caught that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's in here too.
Yeah,
Pete,
that,
if you could scroll to the beginning to line 110.
Oh, okay, further back, yeah. I was looking just on the budget, though. It's there, but yeah, it was way down.
okay. Yeah, that would be nice. I like how some of the departments have some pretty good notes, though. If we could add the body cams. The other one was you were talking about the staffing, and I see an increase in the permanent employee salaries, but I was unclear as you were going through it if it was a request of 6 or 7 staff, and then I see the only comment in the notes is a higher number, so I'm just wondering about the difference there, or what that means.
Sure, we're asking for 5 additional sworn staff, so 5 police officers, and then 1 SRO, which would be assigned to Horace High School, but the SRO would be funded by the school district.
Okay, so that okay, all right, so that's not part of that
Correct.
6.8, okay. So 5, and then you had talked about body cam,
A coordinator,
coordinator, thank you.
yes,
So that would be,
and then an administrative assistant.
okay, so 5, 6, 7, so it would be 7 additional staff that would be in that top line item? 8, okay, because you said that the one was not part of this budget.
The SOR is a part of the budget.
It is,
But it will be.
Reimbursed in a revenue line
oh, okay,
somewhere else,
okay.
in another part of the budget.
I see,
West Fargo
okay,
Public Schools.
okay.
Commissioner Olson?
So on that line item 110, we've got the 6.8 million, but over in the comments and notes way off to the right, there's a figure of 7.3. So I'm just curious if that was, what's that? Is that not supposed to be
Yes.
there, or is that because if we get them all hired, or is that a Jim note? Because he's standing up and.
I think I can answer, but Jim would do a second a lot better.
One thing I want to comment on, You don't see a lot of detail in the report that we've provided because the police department does such a phenomenal job. I mean, in my years of working in budgeting, I've never seen something as comprehensive and complete as this. This is your zero-based budgeting Bible. So, the number on the 7.35, that's all the numbers, the four numbers at the top of hit the schedule, that's what that equals. So if you want to take the 6.4 million to the 7.35, that tells you about how much with the cost of living and the increases there and the new staff, the 8 new staff members, that's your total increase, just about $1 million.
So it's 7.3, not 6.8?
Not just 6.8, because the 6.4 million also includes the individual retirement, annual sick payout, and overtime. It's just rolled up.
Oh, so
when
you
we
just
bring
added
that.
those together? and
But
put it right there.
we bring them all together when we actually bring it into the budget. We like to break it out because it gives you better detail to see what really makes up, because we have to account for those different components within their budget.
Thank you.
Commissioner Simmons?
So Pete, thank you, Mayor. So on the cameras, I know, do you remember the cost on the camera system?
I don't have that actual one right here.
I know it was a lot of money. I guess my point is that we are hoping that we get a grant for that, correct? So that will pull down some of this overall figures.
Yes.
Cross our fingers, right? And
Yes.
do
We're hoping
whatever else
that
we
goes
can.
through. Now, that's just a hope as well, right?
Right,
Because they're only awarding a certain amount of these, and it's gonna be based upon.
45
agencies.
across
Yeah.
America, yeah.
We did put together a very good presentation for them, so our fingers are crossed for that, and we are hopeful that it will come through.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Pete? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, Commission President and other commissioners, that concludes your fun presentation of our budget. At this point, what we're looking for are, if you see adjustments that you feel should be made, to forward them, please. And any major changes then to the budget presented here, we would make a list and we would bring them forward to commission for approval at the next meeting before we present the preliminary budget.
I'd like to make a couple comments. First and foremost, thank you to all the department heads for their efforts on providing these budgetary numbers to us. Secondly, thank you, Mr. Larson and Mrs. Fisk, for taking those numbers and then having individual meetings with the commissioners. You know, we have a new commissioner joining us this evening, and Mr. Anderson, I know that we had exchanged a number of emails, so he was engaged in the process too. And there are more questions to come. I am confident of that from all of us. If one takes a look at Mrs. Fisk's summary sheet about the 2023 budget factors, and thank you for that, by the way, Mrs. Fisk, it's well done. Some of the numbers are sobering and not probably the news that we want to have, but it is the facts. And so there will be additional conversations that will be taking place, hopefully between commissioners reaching out to each of you on some of the line items, and or Mrs. Fisk and or Mr. Larson or your fellow commissioners if they hold some of that information. I think that one of the issues that I continue to struggle with is the $2.4 million transfer again. That's an issue that it's a reality of what we're dealing with the numbers for 2022 and what we're experiencing presently and obviously forecasting for 2023. So that's kicking the can down the road. And so I struggle with that one. And so I'll tell you straight up, I'm gonna have additional questions on where we might be able to squeeze these budgets a little bit.
The 2.4 million is to cover the additional costs just in police and fire. The deficit that we're carrying forward that was 1.45 last year, that we were able to get down to 300. For next year, we're estimating 1 million. So we're moving that down to get it smaller and smaller. So just want to, because I know it was confusing and I talked real fast. So if you have additional questions, I'm very happy to talk about it.
Yeah, my apologies, I did look
Oh,
down
no.
at the wrong number, but yeah,
It's all right.
it is still part of the reality that what we're dealing with here with regarding a balanced budget. And so I would express to all of the department heads, if there's some additional analysis that you can do and some thoughts that you've had because of some of the questions that were asked this evening, please reach out to Mrs. Fisk and/or Mr. Larson or any one of us as commissioners. We owe that to the taxpayers of the city of West Fargo. Commissioners, anything additional this evening that you'd like to share? Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, Commissioners, anything additional that you'd like to bring up this evening? No? We could stand for a motion to adjourn then?
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded.